Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are so glad that you could join us for our English Flash News edition, during which time we present the news in English for the benefit of our international listeners. In today's news, the floods are still very heavy in Fier, and the residents are complaining that they are not receiving enough aid from the emergency services. The people of Fier have suffered a lot of property damage and loss, and now they have begun to ask for compensation, especially for the livestock and crops that have been lost. The shepherds and farmers are saying that much of their livestock and crops have died in the floods, and they depend upon these things for their livelihood. There are still many acres of land that are completely underwater in Fier. The army forces are active there and have already begun to distribute food to the distressed and hungry residents. Meanwhile, there are fears about the corpses of the drowned livestock possibly spreading disease as they decompose. The situation is still not good in Nova Sela. Our reporters say that the floods have retreated to some extent, but that many of the villages in the area are still submerged in water. The old road from Levant to Vlora is passable now, with a little difficulty. Most of the rural roads are passable as well, except the Vlora-Selenica road, which has been blocked by a buildup of gravel. Workers are currently trying to clear it for traffic. The working crews have also begun to restore the pumping station, the substations, and the drinking water supply for 5 villages in the municipality of Nova Sela. Meanwhile, the emergency services have distributed food to the displaced families. This morning, one of our journalists informed us that the Vjosa River has diminished, but the torrential waters have damaged the electricity substation and came close to destroying the water pumping station. The Nova Sela residents who could not be evacuated have taken shelter with their neighbors in the higher floors of the buildings. Many of the farmers and shepherds say that the damage from the flood was so great that their homes are now uninhabitable, and the ground is thick with mud. Most of Nova Sela has been submerged since Saturday afternoon. Today, although the water level has dropped, the commune continues to be without drinking water and without electricity, and the main road continues to be impassable for small vehicles. Due to the floods, the schools are closed in all the villages of the area. The army continues to distribute food and clothing to those in need. The Prime Minister and the Interior Minister both went to Berat today in order to see the flooding and the damage that it caused firsthand. The Prime Minister called on the residents to cooperate with the emergency staff and told them that they will be evacuated if it becomes necessary, as the weather is expected to get worse. He also made the announcement that when this terrible situation is over, an investment is going to be made to ensure that the problem does not occur in the future. The prefect of Berat has said that all of the families that were at risk from the flooding have been evacuated. The head of civil emergency has also had encouraging words, saying that the situation in Berat is improved. 65 houses were flooded by the overflowing of the river Osumi. 35 families abandoned their houses, and the others have taken shelter in the upper stories, as the water on the first floor of the buildings can be up to 1 meter deep. The water has in fact retreated to some extent, but there are still 409 hectares of agricultural land that are completely submerged in flood water. The Democratic Party is making the claim that the Prime Minister and his government have no concrete plan of action for helping the citizens who have been affected by this flood. They have once again admonished the Prime Minister to lead the emergency staff and to implement a concrete plan of action, to evacuate those who need to be evacuated, to help those who are trapped, and to provide medicine and food for the livestock. In a media statement, the General Secretary of the Democratic Party, Arben Ristani, said that the citizens need an immediate response, not just observations and unbelievable promises. He said, "There is no concrete security offered to the citizens for their compensation. The citizens need a solution and not just empty promises. The trapped citizens say that they cannot communicate with the authorities or with the deputies of the majority who represent them. Unfortunately, The situation is dramatic, and there have been no concrete actions from Edi Rama. Instead of attacking the opposition, he should give an account for the lives and the property of the citizens, said Arben Ristani. The Minister of Transport has announced that an operation is coming to prevent the theft of water, just like the previous operation on electricity. According to Minister Hadjinasto, the need for intervention in this sector is very high, as the water network losses are currently around 67%. He presented the main priorities for the coming reform during his speech. Among other things, the minister said that the labor force in this sector is now going to be qualified, trained, and will even undergo a test. According to Mr. Hadjinasto, incapable people who cannot carry out their responsibilities will not be employed anymore. The draft law on higher education is meeting with opposition from the board of directors at Tirana University. They have given warning of a possible strike if this draft does indeed turn out to be the finalized document and if it is established as law. They gave this warning at a forum that was held for academic freedom in autonomous universities. Expressing his dislike of the draft, Mark Marcu said that the ministry is mocking the universities. He said that the response will be a strike if the ministry continues on this path. Another of the board members said that the intention of this draft is to establish government control over the universities. The board has expressed the concern that the government is not seeing the universities as a national asset. They said that the draft does not reflect any of the recommendations that they presented more than 6 months ago. The Law Commission held their meeting today and discussed some of the changes that are being made to the local governance. The merging of municipalities has eliminated the financial problems, at least to some extent, but it seems as though another problem has emerged. The head of the communes will now be appointed instead of chosen by vote. The Democratic MP, Oerd Bulukbashi, says that the citizens are the ones that lose from this structure. He says that the possibility of abuse will be compounded, as public offices might be given in exchange for services or as personal favors. This issue was the strongest point of debate in the Law Commission today, where the changes to the law on the organization of local government were discussed. According to the Democrats, this intervention does not present any improvements to the local government, but merely brings the district more in line with the territorial division, which for them is still unacceptable. After about 2 hours of discussion, a request was made by the Democrats and was backed up by the Socialist MP, Bashkim Fino. The political parties agreed to call the interest groups and experts to discuss the changes, hoping to find consensus on this law. The law, of course, requires a majority of votes in the parliament. The significant changes to the law of local government were presented by Minister Bledi Chuchi. Among other things, the changes are intended to retire the term municipality and the position of mayor. These responsibilities will instead be given to administrators, who jointly will carry the same competence as municipalities and mayors did previously. In art news, the National Theatre has announced that they will temporarily be moving to a new location, while their old building is under reconstruction. The former Institute of Energy is going to be turned into a cultural center, which will include 2 halls for the theater. This will be only a temporary solution in order to allow time for the theater building to be rebuilt. The actor Neritan Litsai is in support of this project, and he feels that the state is going to direct attention back to art in this way. However, he says that the actors do not know much about the new building that is going to be their temporary home. The reconstruction of the cultural center will take about 1.5 years, and according to the director of the theater, cultural activities will continue meanwhile. That is all the news for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you very much for joining us. Please be with us again tomorrow at the same time for more translated news in English. Thanks, and good night.
Ora News.